Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome back to another DCO Live. It is Thursday night. Glad to see everybody in here. Man, again, guys, I really appreciate y'all jumping on. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks. We didn't do a show last week, and because I was in Jamaica, I took a little vacation, and it was actually some well-deserved time off. It was it wasn't quite my 30th anniversary, but we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary, Lefty and I. And our anniversary isn't until August, but we actually went down with a group, and we went to a Sandals down in it was actually South Coast Jamaica, and just had a blast. And it was the first time at a Sandals, and absolutely loved it. The all inclusive. If any of you guys have been to the Sandals, give me a thumbs up. But I tell you, the food, the drink, everything was fantastic. It was just nice to get away, relax on the beach a little bit. But I got to tell you, even sitting on the beach, my eye was scanning the water for fish breaking the surface. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Even when you're driving down the road and you look at a river or a lake or whatnot, you guys are picking out fishing spots. I know you guys way too well. And I was doing the same thing. I went snorkeling one day, or well, our group did. And we got out on a beautiful reef and saw some fish and some sea urchins. And on the last day, went for a walk on the beach and saw a stingray working the shallow end of the beach right there, and some pelicans diving, and it was fantastic. So well-deserved time off. I appreciate you guys letting me get a little time off. And I was going to do some editing while I was in Jamaica to get another video out while I was gone. But you know what? I didn't feel like doing any editing. I just kicked back and I didn't do anything. It was great. So guys, I know the video is going to be late. I may get it out Sunday or even Monday. I am way behind with it, but that's okay. The next video coming out is actually the actual tournament day down in Beaufort. So the last video I kicked out was my pre-fishing video. So I'm actually I wanted to recap the tournament a little bit tonight down in Beaufort, and kind of talk about that and what happened. I haven't been on the water now for 2 weeks, so I'm a little bit behind. I know that it's been really warm here in South Carolina, and especially in the Myrtle Beach, Murrells Inlet area, and really up and down the coast. But so let's dive right into the recap. And of course, guys, if you got any questions whatsoever, go ahead and throw them in the chat box. This is just going to kind of be a wing it night. We're just going to kind of have a little conversation. So whatever questions are on your guys' mind, throw them in the chat box and we'll get to it. So June 6th and 7th, back several weeks ago, I went down to Beaufort, South Carolina for a Low Country Anglers Redfish series, and it was stop number 3. And so with it being a redfish tournament, you were allowed 2 redfish for the tournament, and the slot for this tournament was 15 to 27 inches. So you could keep, so nothing smaller than 15 or bigger than 27. Now I want to stop and do a little side note here real quick. The last tournament video that I kicked out, a gentleman asked me, I thought the slot limit was 15 to 23. It is for the state of South Carolina. So if you want to keep a redfish in the state of South Carolina, the regulation is 15 to 23 inches, and it has to be within that slot. But for this tournament, the slot size for the tournament was 15 to 27 inches. It was photo catch release, so everything had to be released back. So I just wanted to make sure that I touched on that real quick, because I did get a couple of comments about that saying, hey, I thought the slot size was this and this. So ended up going down on a Friday, had the day off, and going down to pre-fish. Never seen the water, never been down to, well, I've been down to Beaufort one time, totally different area that I was fishing, but I wanted to get down there and at least see the water. Got around. I was out on the water for about 6 or 7 hours. I wanted to stop fishing right at about 3 o'clock because that's when lines were out. So, it really didn't make any difference if I fished at 6, 7 o'clock at night when the sun was going down. Because if the bite turned on at 7 o'clock, it would have just been for fun fishing. But I wanted to see what these fish were going to be doing during tournament time. So I went around and I started working a bunch of areas, oyster bars, docks, and I was picking up some flounder, picked up some trout. I picked up a nice 19-inch trout off of a little oyster island or a big oyster bar that was exposed about halfway through the tide. The tide was going out when I was fishing, and all of these oyster mounds were starting to get exposed. And I saw some bait fish getting sprayed up into the air. So I knew something was working in that area. So I went over there. I think I had a little white paddle tail, threw it right over there, and man, he nailed it and ended up being a 19-inch trout, which is a great fish. Not the species I was looking for, but it was a great fish. So, guys, anytime you see those bait fish being sprayed out of the water, and when they hit the water, it almost looks like when you take a garden hose and spray over a pool and you just see that little light spraying over the water. That's what those bait fish look like. So that's when I threw over there. And maybe about 5 minutes later, I kind of worked my way around that oyster bar and threw up in this little pocket and picked up a nice flounder. And I can't remember if it was 17 or 18 inches, but again, a really nice keeper flounder. Pulled him in. That was awesome. I think I may have caught a couple of other flounder or maybe another small trout. I can't exactly remember. It's been about 3 weeks now and everything's running together. And I can't say Jamaica is probably messing with my mind a little bit. So, but I think that's what I ended up catching. No redfish during pre-fishing. Couldn't find them. So I fished under docks, oyster bars, creek mouths, along some grass lines, and couldn't find any any redfish during the pre-fishing tournament. But if you guys watched my video during the intro of the video, I did have something pretty unique happen to me. I was coming out of a little creek and it was almost at the bottom of the tide. I was probably in less than a foot of water. I wanted to push back and just see if there was anything back in there. On my way back, I came out into the creek mouth and I had just put my drive back in, got everything situated. The net was in the back rod holder, which it usually isn't there. It's usually up in front of me, which you guys know it usually sets up there up against the pedals. And as soon as I came out and I just started pedaling, kind of working up this one shoreline, and a shark came out of the water right next to my kayak, bounced off the kayak, and flew out in front of me. He had to be at least a 5-foot shark, easy, and landed out in front of me. Now, the fortunate thing is, I got it on video. The unfortunate thing is, my net was blocking actually seeing the shark. You can see the splash out of the water and then in the water up in front of me, but the net was angled perfect where you actually couldn't see the shark. And when I got back to my hotel room, I pulled up the footage and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Can't see the shark. But he was there. He came right out, bounced off of the kayak. It was crazy. And, one, it startled me. And two, looking at the footage, my kayak hardly even rocked. That's how stable that Hoodoo Impulse is. I mean, when you got a fish that size banging off the side of your boat and that kayak hardly even moved, that's a great. I was pretty impressed with it. So yeah, that fish, that shark came out of the water, and that was really cool. So day two, tournament day, lines were in at 6 a.m. Excuse me. And I got just a little bit of a late start. I think actually got on the water at like 6:15. Took a little bit of time, and excuse me, I had a cup of coffee in the morning. I was talking to a couple guys at the ramp, and ended up getting out on the water just 15 minutes late. It's not that big of a deal, and so I started working down a grass line, and I wanted to see if I could pick up a redfish first thing on topwater. It was high tide. And I mean, we were right at high tide when we launched that day. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to pitch along this grass line. I'm going to see if I can't pick something up. Never did get a redfish down that grass line. I got a couple of follows from some trout, but they never really went after that top water. So ended up putting that away and came up to a dock, and I pulled out a little shrimp and I started working this little dock. And matter of fact, it was the voodoo shrimp. It was the Cajun pepper chartreuse tail. Started pitching around that dock. And again, I mean, nothing, no flounder, no nothing. So I pushed on around, and I went to where those oyster mounds were. Now, with it being high tide, I pushed past those where those oyster mounds were, and I went way back into the creek, as far back as I could go. And I was in maybe foot and a half, 2 feet of water, and scouted around, looked around, went everywhere, didn't even see a fish. I burned a couple of hours back in there, worked my way out of that little grass marsh. And hey, Gunnar, great to see you. Glad you jumped on tonight. And so worked out of that grass marsh, and I pulled a little 3-inch paddle tail. And as I was coming out of one of the creek mouths, I threw back up in there and picked up a small trout. So that was my first fish of the day. I got the skunk out of the boat. At least I knew I could catch a fish that day. I was like, okay, I got the skunk out. And then I think my next fish was a small flounder. Can't exactly remember, but picked up maybe a couple of flounder here and there. But again, that's not what I'm targeting. It's a redfish tournament. So I ended up leaving that area, and there was a set of docks back across the waterway. So I was like, you know what? The wind is picking up a little bit. Before it gets too out of control, I want to hit these docks. So the tide is dumping out. It's probably mid-morning. I can't 10:30, 11 o'clock, something like that. And went to that first dock and started pitching, again, that little voodoo shrimp, and threw up underneath that dock, let the current just kind of drift it out naturally, and bang, picked up my first redfish. So that was awesome. He ended up measuring out at 19 and a quarter. So great fish, hit that. Never got another one off of that dock. Worked my way down those. I think there were 5 or 6 docks on this little island area. And matter of fact, I went back and I looked at the map, and it was Fripp Island where those docks were. So I don't know if you guys know Fripp Island or not, but that's what I was fishing. That's where I picked up that fish. So the wind was starting to pick up pretty good, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to find some protected areas. So I went back up into a few more creeks. The tide was dropping out. We were almost at low tide. I pushed back into this another creek area, and it just didn't look fishy, but I went ahead and pushed back anyway. It probably wasn't the best thought that I had all day. It was hot that day. It was up into the 90s. The water temperatures were up in the upper 80s. And I was like, looking back on it, it was not an area that I should have been in. But I pushed back up in there anyway, just to take a look. Never got anything. Came back out, checked another little creeks, and as the tide was still dumping out, never really caught anything. Picked up another 2, I think, flounder at this little creek mouth. Again, really nothing. And that ended up being my only redfish of the tournament. So 19 and a quarter. When I got back to the landing, everybody was already starting to come in. There was another guy or two already there, and it was a tough day. So there were I'm trying to think, 9 of us fishing, and there were only 5 or 6 fish registered in that day. The gentleman who won it, Tyler, he caught 2 fish, 2 redfish, and he ended up winning. And he caught his second one fairly late in the day. So, and then second place, he caught 1 fish at, I think he was like 20 or 22. So a 22 inch. And um, that was Bob. Bob caught that one. And then I ended up in third with my 1 fish at 19 and a quarter. And then one other gentleman, I think, caught like maybe an 18 and a half. And that was it. Those were the only redfish caught all day. Plenty of trout, plenty of flounder, but the redfish were just elusive. We could not find them. We couldn't figure this area out. There was one gentleman, Kenny, he caught a 27 and a quarter or 27 and a half inch redfish. So that was just a quarter or a half inch too big. He couldn't get him measured in, or else he would have won. Or no, he would have came in second because Tyler, his 2 fish were 40 inches, but he would have definitely came in second. He would have booted me out of a check, but that was an awesome fish. And he picked him up under a dock, I believe is what he said. So, redfish came off of docks, and, we just couldn't find them in the creeks, couldn't find them over oyster beds. And so it was a tough day, but a great tournament. Absolutely love Beaufort. I am definitely looking to, going back down there, trying to form up another trip to go down for another 2 days. And because it is just an absolutely beautiful area, ton of water to fish. I mean, we didn't even scrape the surface down there in that little area that we were in. So just a fantastic day. Looking back on it, trying to think of what I would do different, and looking at how I caught that one red, the dock and current, that was probably where I needed to start going. I probably needed to start looking for some heavy current areas, because with the water being as warm as it is, and this is, those summer tactics that we also want to kind of talk about is, current is going to bring in more oxygen and a little bit cooler water. So, I should have probably went around. There were a couple more docks. It was a pretty good run to get to 2 other docks. I probably should have just made my way down there and tried to put that pattern together, but I don't know if I got lazy or my mind was thinking of something else. But, looking back on it, looking at the footage that I'm going back through with this video that I'm going to put out maybe this weekend or early next week, that's probably what I should have done. But again, the way that the wind was shifted and blown into us, it was just going to be a difficult pedal to get over there. But I probably should have went. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I should have been looking maybe for some deeper water, because again, during the summertime, current and deeper water for the cooler temperatures is where we're going to be looking at fishing, for these summertime patterns. Yak and Inshore has a question. Let me pop it up here on the screen. Said, are these tournaments random? On what tide are you fishing? I know for me, the high tides are much tougher since they are not as concentrated. Yeah, so it's just random when they pick these dates. So you just have to fish whatever tides these dates are fall on. And this date, it just happened to be a falling tide when we were launching at high tide and fishing pretty much all of the outgoing. And I think maybe it was like an hour, maybe 2 of the incoming tide. So, I don't even know if I would really count, the incoming tide during that tournament. But yeah, it's random, just whenever that date falls. And yeah, high tides, yeah, it's definitely tougher. You've got to, know an area, know where to go look for some fish and try to put a pattern together. You can definitely find them. I usually like going up on flats during the high tides, there was really no flats. Well, there was some flats around me, but when it was low tide, I went back onto the flat where I caught that one trout and pre-fishing and never saw anything. There was no fish moving. There was plenty of bait fish moving. There was shrimp popping, but I never saw any fish on that flat. So, I went to those flats. I went to those areas. I just couldn't find them. I was fishing the grass lines, little pockets. I was standing up. I was looking. I was listening for bait busting. Just couldn't find them. I was thinking that the majority of the fish were going to be caught, those last couple of hours right before low tide, and maybe right at the bottom of the tide or right at the beginning towards the end of the tournament. That's when I thought these fish were going to be caught, but they just weren't. I could not find them. Where they slipped off into, I have no idea. I wish I did, but no clue. And you guys who hunt these redfish, you guys know how elusive they are. You see them 1 second, and the next second they're just gone. They're like ghosts. They change zip codes, and I don't know where they go. So, it was just I just couldn't locate them. But yeah, during the low tides when there's not a lot of water in these creeks, yeah, it's easier to find these fish and find these concentrations, because one, you can see them working the bait, and their backs may be out of the water. You may see the rings on top of the water where their tail's moving. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, a little bit easier. But yeah, it was just one of those things. And again, when you don't know these areas, it's a little bit tougher. That's why I tried to go down and pre-fish, and I did eliminate water with the pre-fishing, but the place is huge. So I could have been 20 feet away from a school of fish, and I would have never have known it. So, it's tournament fishing, man. It is what it is. It's who is the best that day. And Tyler and Bob, they were the best that day. So congrats to them. They had a great day. And Kenny with that 27 and a quarter, he had, a fantastic fish. So, that's awesome. So getting back to the summer inshore patterns and tactics that we should, really be looking at is one, these it has been hot. So when I was down in Jamaica, I was getting weather alerts back in Myrtle Beach where you guys were having, heat index 104, 107. It was absolutely brutal hot up here. And, welcome to South Carolina during, June and July and August. It's going to be brutal hot. And this is going to be kind of that time where, the morning fishing is going to be the time we're going to get most of our fish caught. In the afternoon, it's probably going to turn off around that. I'm just going to say noon, just as kind of a rule of thumb. It may be 11, 1 o'clock, kind of whatever. But, getting out during these morning times where the water is going to be cooler, the sun is going to be down, is probably going to be the time that, the fish are really going to be biting. And then, if you can get out into the afternoon, especially on an afternoon, I'm going to say bottom low to when it just starts to, the water starts to come back in. So on an incoming tide, because what's going to happen on the incoming tide is all of that hot water that was sitting like in the flats, that has all drained out. And now a little bit cooler water pushing in from the ocean is going to start coming back in again. So those incoming tides are going to be really important during the summertime, at least in my opinion, because it's basically going to, for all intents and purposes, flush out the hotter water of the afternoon and start bringing in some cooler water from the ocean. So the ocean is going to be a little bit more of a constant temperature, maybe that upper 80s. But when you push back into these flats and back into these creeks, you can get um, 90s. And matter of fact, about a month ago, Captain Chris Regan, he said that in Murrells Inlet in the summertime, he has seen water temperatures at 100 degrees back in these creeks. And that is just brutally hot for these fish. And these fish are not going to stick around in these hot temperatures and this hot water. They are going to find cooler water wherever that may be. So if back in these creeks, if it's, I'm just going to say 95, if it's 95 degrees back in these shallow creeks, they're not going to be there. They're going to look for, even if it's 90 degrees or 89 degrees, that's going to feel better to them than 95. It may be a little bitty pothole that's 4 or 5 feet deep instead of that 2 or 3 feet deep up in the flats. Current is going to bring in more oxygen. So fish want oxygen, cooler water. So look for those areas. As the water gets hotter, the oxygen goes down. So, these are all things that we have to kind of keep in mind. So stagnant water way back into the flats, high in the afternoons where it's only 2 or 3 feet deep, I'm not going to be fishing those areas. Those fish are not going to be there. I want to be looking for a little bit deeper water. Current is going to be important, some current movement, a little bit deeper holes, whatever that may be. It's all relative. If you're back 3 feet, 5 feet is a deep hole, and there may be some fish concentrated in there. If you can find these drop offs at creek mouths, that is going to be awesome for fish, especially if it's a significant drop off. Anything that is, going from 3 feet to 8 feet is going to be fantastic. Those are going to be the holes you guys are going to want to concentrate on, and make sure that you are working your way down that little bank and working the bottom there, because fish are going to be there, because it's going to be a little cooler. The water is going to be moving through there. So again, it's going to be kind of a broken record, but this is what we want to look for. And again, a little bit of structure. And structure is a deep hole. It may not be, oyster bars all the time or a dock or whatnot. So a deep hole is also structure. Look for docks. Shade is going to cool that water. So if there's docks in your area that you can fish, start hitting docks. Okay. Another question came in. Alex just jumped in and he said, are you fishing the inlet kayak tournament this weekend? I am. I am going to be fishing. There is another low country kayak anglers tournament. It is called the Red, White, and Blue tournament, and it's a slam tournament. So you need one redfish, one trout, and one flounder. You measure them all, and again, the longest inches or the most accumulated inches for those three species wins. So, and then there's 3 side pots. There's a Calcutta for biggest redfish caught that day, biggest trout, and biggest flounder caught that day. So, you can get in, and I think all of that together, I think it was like $40 to get in for this tournament. So yeah, I'm going to fish it. I'm not going to take it serious. I'm going to be doing some fun fishing, moving around a little bit. I have been enjoying the flounder bite. So I'm actually going to be targeting, some flounder during the day, but I just went ahead and I just entered it in because I'm going to be out there fishing anyway. So I might as well throw some money into it. You never know, you could catch a redfish and a trout. The good thing about it is the trout bite, from when I had all of those captains on about a month ago, they were saying the trout bite in Murrells Inlet happens around new moon and full moon. Well, this weekend, I believe, and you guys are going to have to correct me, but I think it's a new moon right around this weekend. So the trout may be on this weekend. So, we can look for that in the morning, work some suspended baits over some deeper holes, you may be able to pick up a trout, but the trout are usually pretty elusive during the summertime in Murrells Inlet. You can catch them, they're out there, but they're usually pretty elusive. So, but yeah, Alex, I'm going to be fishing that tournament. Are you fishing the tournament? Let me know there in the comments if you're going to be fishing. And definitely I will see you out there out on the landing. I'll be there as soon as the gate swings open. You guys know Oyster Recycling Center, the shout out to my state park rangers. They need to be just a little bit better getting there at dusk and not a half hour or an hour later. We want to get out on the water. So hopefully they are there right at 6 o'clock, right when that sun comes up to let us on the water. So yeah, guys. So man, it's already been 30 minutes. I'm just sitting here chattering away. Hopefully I gave you a couple of tips that you guys can use. Summertime it's just getting started, and we're going to be hitting these summertime tactics for the next 3 months, really. And if you guys have questions, man, excuse me. If you guys have questions, shoot them over to me on Instagram at Dead Come Outdoors, or Facebook Dead Come Outdoors. Message me, and I will address them during the live. And drop me a comment into the videos. I always answer the comments. At least I think I do. If I miss some, I apologize. I try to get to all the comments and answer everything that you guys shoot out me. So, but yeah, hopefully. Yakin, I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Great info, Chris. Congrats on the 3rd place. Hey, it is what it is. One fish. That's the thing about a tournament. You never know. I usually only check the leaderboard one time, and that's usually midway through the day. So sometime halfway through the day, I'll pull it up just to see who's catching fish. And I think if memory serves, when I pulled it up, I was in 2nd place, and there were only 2 fish recorded at that point. And yeah, so I was like, man, the fish, either people aren't, recording their fish and submitting their fish, or nobody's catching them. So yeah, I don't leaderboard watch. I'm out fishing. I'm having a good time and going that way. Alex said, gonna be out of town this weekend, or I'd be out there too. Hopefully the bite's good for y'all. Yeah, us too. So, but the last time I looked, I think there was 11 or 12 of us. Hopefully you guys jump out there. This is actually, I want to give a shout out to Low Country Kayak Anglers. They changed their rules. You can now have motorized kayaks in the tournaments. So you guys have been asking for it. I want to throw this out there, and it's no longer paddle or pedal. You can now have a motor on your kayak in these tournaments. So if that's been holding you back, guys, come out. It is not too late to join this tournament. Get in and join a great club. So yeah, you can now use a motor, any type of electric motor, on your kayak to get around in these tournaments, which is fantastic. So Russell, appreciate it. Thanks. He congratulated me on a 3rd place. Hey, it was fun. It was fun. So guys, again, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so. I really would appreciate that. And, I know about 2/3 of you haven't subscribed, because I get it in the analytics. About 30% are subscribers who watch this, and 60-some% are not. So I'd appreciate subscribe, but keep watching the videos. A little behind the curtain with YouTube, it's about views. It's not about subscribers. It used to be, if you want to do any type of, selling things, brand ambassador, stuff like that, they look at subscriber count, but YouTube pays off of viewership, viewer count, and that's how it is. So again, guys, just a little behind the curtain of YouTube, and but I just do it for fun. It's a great passion. I'm out there fishing anyway. Might as well throw a camera on, right? So whatever. But anyway, guys, again, I appreciate y'all. If you see me out on the water, give me a shout. Stop by. I am actually working on some new stickers. I am out of my stickers. I gave them all out to everybody that I see out on the landings. I gave them all out. I'm working on some new designs. Hopefully, in the next month, I'll have those in and start giving all those back out again. But guys, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see y'all next week. And remember, conservation starts with you. Release a fish for someone else to enjoy. So, guys, again, I'll see y'all next week, and you guys have a great night.